is a certified story brand agency. One of the coolest guys I know, and he definitely has one of the coolest haircuts on the face of the planet. Wes, man, welcome, buddy. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good, Ken. How are you doing?
I'm good, dude. Hey, man, tell our audience real quick. Take a minute. Tell everybody a little bit about what you do, who you are, where you're at, and what you've got going on right now.
Yeah, so my name is Wes. I live north of Atlanta, and I run an agency called Wayfinder, strategically positioned right behind my head here. You know, a lot of businesses, and it doesn't matter what size of the organization you are, a lot of businesses communicate what they do with the clarity and confidence of a middle school boy asking the girl to a dance, right? And so what we do is we have a framework called Story Brand based off a book called Building a Story Brand, where we help people figure out what do they need to say in order to get their customers to buy more, or to get donors to give more, or to get their target audience to engage more with what they're doing. So that's what it is. That's what we primarily do, is messaging, et cetera. But we also, build websites and do a lot of the digital marketing stuff you see. But it all comes to us with, what do we need to say? Because my theory is if you get the words right, everything else is going to fall into place, period.
Right. Every day, this, my 10X planner right there. It says, what problem can I solve today?
Yeah.
And so we hired you several months ago to come through for my real estate team and walk us through the process for the day. And we came out with not only several products that we were using in the real estate business, but we actually came out with a message, which was phenomenal. Guys, Wes is hands down one of the best guys I've ever been around when it comes to how to communicate with your clients. So we talk about three things a lot here on the Growth Stack Drive podcast. We talk about mindset, we talk about strategy, and we talk about multiplication through leadership development and leadership growth. Today, I'd love to spend some time on strategy, Wes. And so let me ask you this question. Why do we as business owners and entrepreneurs just assume that we can try to sell our product or our service any way that we see fit?
Because we don't look at it through the lens of our customer, right? There's a book called The Art of Explanation by a guy named Lee Lefevre, and he talks about this concept called the curse of knowledge. In your business, I would hope in your business, you're like a 9 or a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10 about the knowledge of what you do. The problem is your customer is a 1 or a 2, because you are in your business day in and day out. You're in the meetings, you're in the Slack channels, you're in the project management, you're in the conversations, you're in the brainstorming, you're in all that stuff. Your customer is in their world. And so they're interacting with you in a minimal amount. And so a lot of times we think we can do whatever we want because we think that's what matters to our customers. We don't matter to our customers. What matters to our customers is the problems they have every day, and that they see your potential product or your product as a way to potentially solve the issues they have. So if you don't look at it at what your customers are saying or what your customers are looking for, then nobody's going to care. I mean, how many times have you been to an event or been to a party, or just sometimes it could be a cookout at a friend's house. You meet somebody new and you go, hey, I'm Ken. What's your name? I'm Wes. Well, what do you do, Wes? And then they just start talking about themselves for 20 minutes. You're like, I definitely need to get out of here. I'm bored to tears. Because the reality is we all mostly care about ourselves. And so let's leverage that natural inclination and say, what matters to the person I'm trying to sell to, the person I'm trying to market to, whatever it is, so they hear it in a way that makes more sense. You also see this in marriage. I mean, this, Ken. Yeah. If you've been married for more than 12 minutes, then it's not about what you think should be said. It's about what your spouse heard and how they understand it. And we're not manipulating anything. It's how do I communicate in a way that's going to best be understood by the person I'm trying to reach? And that's the problem. Otherwise, you just run around talking about yourself and nobody cares. They really don't.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm just going to be a little transparent on my own podcast with you today. I'm so passionate about what we do. Sometimes I can be like, hey, man, let me tell you what we're doing. Let's go. Talk to me about the strategy, Wes. And talk to me about some of the process you walk clients through, and maybe some of the big mistakes you see businesses and entrepreneurs make. And then what are your suggestions to correct those mistakes?
Yeah. So we walked through, like I mentioned, a book called Building a Story Brand by a guy named Donald Miller. And there's 7 elements of storytelling in that book. And the reason we use that is not so we help our clients tell stories. It's story is a way that we all make sense of the world. If you have kids, that's why we read all these books that have these moral lessons and principles, these kind of life things we want to teach our kids, because we do it through story, right? Movies do that. My wife and I are finally watching 24 right now. And there's these storytelling elements where sometimes I see what's coming. And then Jack Bauer chops off his partner's arm. And I'm like, I did not see that one. Spoiler alert, finale of season 3. But it's like there's these elements that help people because story is what resonates with people. We told stories before we had written language. And so what we do is walk through that process. And what it is, it's not the story of the company. It's how do we tell the story of our company through the story of our customers, right? So the strategy is how do we reframe our thinking to literally empathize and say, what is our audience struggling with? I mean, we're live and nobody else they can send the hate mail later. But you see this all the time in politics. And quite frankly, it's why Trump won in 2016. He did not get the popular vote. Let's remember, he did not get the majority vote. He got the most electoral votes. But the reality is, when you compare Trump to Hillary in 2016, Trump was, let's make America great again. Here's my plan. Here's what we're going to do. He almost never talked about his past. It was always about the problems that he saw in the country and really ignited that base. Hillary, you have no idea really what her plan was. I was in a room one time 6 months after Trump got inaugurated, and there was a lady in the room who had been a volunteer on Hillary's campaign in Chicago. And I said, I looked at her and said, what was Hillary's plan for America? She's like, I don't know. I said, what was her slogan? She said, I think it was either better together or I'm with her. And I said, you served on the campaign. I asked the group, I said, what was Bernie Sanders' plan for America? And one guy said, weed. I'm like, weed's not really a plan. I mean, it could be, I guess.
It is for some of the guys I have on my podcast.
It is for some of the guys, yeah. And then my favorite was there was a guy from the corporate marketing team was based in Toronto, so he couldn't even vote in 2016. And I said, hey, Dave, what was Donald Trump's plan for America? He goes, make America great again. And I was like, why do you think Trump won? It's because a guy from Canada who could not vote in the U.S. election knows what Trump stood for, what his plan was. But you're seeing right now in 2020, Trump has flipped, right? And where I think he's going to lose if he doesn't be careful, if he's not careful, if he doesn't turn around, is he's now playing the victim. We don't elect victims. We elect people who are guides who are going to carry us forward and say, here's my plan. Here's where I'm going based on the problems you have. And Biden, in some ways, is filling that role. So when you look at how they're positioning themselves right now, I mean, literally last night I read an article where Trump was saying, people don't like me. You're not 8 years old on the playground. Like, you're 70-something, the leader of the free world, supposedly. Like, you've got 4 months until the election, or 3.5. Yeah, 4 months, 3.5 months. Start talking about that and start telling you what you're going to do for us in the next 4 years if you win. All right? Because people want to know where to go. They want their problems to be solved. And so come back to companies. What we do is help figure out what is it that your customers are dealing with. What are their problems? What are their needs? Their problem is not that they haven't hired you. That's your problem, or they haven't bought your stuff. The problem is what are the challenges that they have, and then how do you solve those problems? And we walk people through that all the time to get that right, because we pay attention when there's problems. When there's no problem, we don't pay attention.
Hey, talk to me, Wes. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
But I want to back up on what you said just a minute ago. You used the word guide, and I love how you explain. Because I'm a movie guy, you're a movie guy. We've texted back and forth about 24 because you never watched it before, and I'm like, okay,
bro. By the way, I love that. My business plan is kind of Jack Bauer's business plan, which is investigate, shoot, and then find another way or change of plans. Right. He says change of plans about every 2 episodes.
He does. Or in Grant Cardone world, it's ready, fire, aim.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that concept of guides.
Sure.
Talk to me about the concept of a guide and stories.
Yeah.
And those kinds
so if you've ever studied literature, maybe flashback to brief moments from high school, and this isn't anything new, right? This isn't anything is really revolutionary. There's almost always a character in a story or a movie that's kind of a guide or a mentor figure. So a classic example is Yoda or Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, right? It's amazing to me up until really, I guess, maybe The Mandalorian with Baby Yoda. We've never had a Yoda backstory, right? Think about all the movies. We've had all the comics and all the animated stuff and all the series, and we've never had a Yoda movie. But Yoda is the guy who helps Luke become who he needs to be the first time in that first movie where he shows up. And it's like he helps him become who he needs to be as the hero of the story. But there's so many movies this way, right? Everything from Star Wars to Angels in the Outfield, if you remember that movie from the 90s stuff, Air Bud. I mean, there's all these movies. The Hunger Games. I know. The Hunger Games. I mean, you pick a movie, there's almost always a guide figure there, because the reality is in a movie, the hero of the story is usually one of the weaker characters, right? They're a mess. They've got problems. They're insecure. You don't look at the Karate Kid and say, wow, that kid was strong. I want to be like that guy. No, you look at Mr. Miyagi, he's like, I want to be that guy. The guide is the strong character who says, I know what you're dealing with. I feel your pain, like Bill Clinton said in 92. And then he says, I'm going to help you get to where you want to go. And so what we're all looking for is guides. That's why people hire you as a coach, Ken. That's why people hire fitness coaches. That's why they hire other companies to come in. It's like, I've got this thing I'm trying to solve in my business or in my life. I need somebody to come along and help me get to where I want to go. Right. And that's what a guide role does. That's what we see again in movies and TV all the time, is that character who comes along and says, I want to help you experience the transformation that you're after. I want to help you achieve the goals that you've set out for yourself. And that's who we need to be as businesses and as companies, to say, I know the problems you have. I know the struggles you have. I know what you're dealing with. I empathize with you, but now let me show you how I can solve those problems for you. And that's the paradigm shift every company needs to make.
Talk to us about that. Talk to us about that process, Wes. Yeah. I mean, obviously you took our team, my real estate company. Sure. I've got a team in Birmingham and a team in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about that process. What does that look like when you work with business owners and entrepreneurs to work through that process?
I mean, before we were in a once-in-a-century pandemic, and the world changed, and now everything is a new headline, and you're like, I didn't have this. I didn't have the government admitting to aliens on my 2020 bingo card, but here we are. Yeah, I mean, it's or Kodak entering the pharmaceutical industry. That's a whole separate thing, by the way. But yeah, so what we do is we typically start with either virtual, we do some in person. We just say, hey, listen, what do you sell? Let me find out about your company. But what is it your customers really looking for, right? And sometimes people just have no idea, right? But when I ask people, what are they looking for? It's like, what are they looking to buy, right? If they're, our yard guys came a couple hours ago, and it's like, when I look to hire a lawn service, I literally just want somebody to cut my grass. Like, I'm not looking for anything complicated. I'm not trying to win the yard award in the neighborhood. Right. Which way? It's like, I just want somebody to cut my grass. So we know what people want. And in a story, there's usually, in the first few minutes of the movie, we figure out what the main character wants. And then it becomes, well, what are the hurdles? Or what are the things getting in the way of what people want? And we usually talk about multiple layers of hurdles or problems, which is external. So surface level, what's the issue? I don't want to cut my grass, or I don't have time to do it. Internal, how do I feel about it? Maybe I'm embarrassed because my yard looks really bad. And then kind of philosophical. So what's wrong about my feelings? There's not really a lot of philosophical issues going on with getting my grass cut.
I think we lost Wes.
We lost Wes. I'm frozen. Ken's face is frozen. Can you still hear me? There we go.
I was froze. I lost you on the how do I feel about it?
Yeah. So we have how do I feel about it? And usually there's a lot of companies will try to figure out what's a fundamental thing. Like, I'm working with a company right now, and one of my clients right now, we were looking at like, how do we create, what's that fundamental issue? Like, it's usually you deserve or you should, right? So Ken is a real estate agent. We believe everybody deserves their dream home. It's that kind of thing where you look into it, you go, well, yeah, right. It's kind of this fundamental rallying cry. And then we figure out how do you and your company come along and play that guide role like we talked about, which then leads to a kind of a plan or course of action. In movies and stories, you see this where there's like, hey, here's how you blew up the Death Star. Here's how you win the karate tournament, whatever. And then, what's that call to action, right? In a movie, it's that climactic scene where usually a guide will tell the hero, here's the thing you need to do in order to save the day. And then it ends in success or it ends in failure. And so that's the process we take people through. And we figure out what does that message need to be. Once we get the foundations in place, then we can go build websites and we can build landing pages and we can do email marketing. We do social media and all that. But it all comes back to, what are the problems that your customers face? This is why I talked to a guy from ChickfilA corporate the other day. ChickfilA is on track to have their biggest year ever in the middle of a pandemic. May and June of 2020 were their back-to-back record-breaking months. Wow. Right? Now, why is ChickfilA so good? For one, their drive-through is stupid fast. They're going to be 97 cars wrapped around the building, and you're all done in 6 minutes. It's amazing. But they have so intently, since their beginning, focused on the problems their customers have. Why do you think the app is so good? Because they knew it was an opportunity to serve problems customers have. Why do you think they're so efficient? Because it's a problem for customers. Why do you think their food is good? Because it's a problem for customers. They are so radically focused on problems customers have and solving those problems and talking about those problems and addressing those problems that ChickfilA is the only fast food restaurant, really the only restaurant I've ever heard, where you can be in a room of a few hundred people and say, hey, we're having Chick-fil-A for lunch. And people literally cheer. Like, I've never seen it happen for any other food brand except Chick-fil-A because of the brand that Chick-fil-A has built.
Let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
So I teach this a lot with business owners and when I go speak different places. Chick-fil-A does 5 times more business in a year than the next average fast food restaurant. They're closed on Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
which is the highest revenue producing day of the week.
Yeah.
Why? And so it kind of, these two things are the same question, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Why don't people do what you're talking about?
Yeah.
And then the flip side of that, or I guess the same question would be, it's not impossible to look and see what Chick-fil-A does. Why would people not emulate and do what they do?
Exactly. Well, the reason people don't do it is because it's hard, right? Like one of the reasons, one of the challenges in businesses is doing the hard work of figuring out how do we simplify this down to the core of what it is. It's really easy to ramble. It's really hard to say something that's succinct and powerful because it takes a lot of work to get it distilled down to that. All right. So it's hard work. I mean, it's hard work deciding, hey, you know what? These are the things we're going to stand for. Here's the problems we're going to solve. And we're also going to figure out how to solve those at scale. Right. So then it becomes, how do we do that? And like, the Chick-fil-A playbook is not hard. They've literally written books about it. But people just don't want to put in the work. I mean, you see this all the time when you're coaching or just people in general. You look around and go, you could lose weight. You just don't want to put in the work. You could grow your business. You're not putting in the work. Like, you just got to kind of get up and do the hard work. And we typically don't think of figuring out the words we're going to say as hard work. But the reality is we burn calories. We burn more calories when we think hard, right? How many days have you left over your career, not just in say last year, but over your career, you left and maybe it was a budget planning day, it was a staff retreat, and you're just like, I only walked like 4,000 steps, but I'm exhausted. Right, it's because your brain was in overdrive for the day and you just were wiped out, right? And there's two options with that. You can either do that hard work so your customers don't have to burn all those calories and figure out what you actually do, what you stand for, or your customers can do it for you. And they're just going to go somewhere else because like, I don't know what this is about. So I think people don't do it because the work is hard. I do think though, Chick-fil-A is radically committed to these ideas that are so counterintuitive in business, right? I mean, you think about it, Chick-fil-A and McDonald's serve the same problem. Mm-hmm. I'm hungry. But you walk into a Chick-fil-A and they have clearly identified other problems and issues that people deal with outside of just the meal. At Chick-fil-A, when you could go into them, it was the flowers on the table and it was always bright and lively and people were smiling and well-trained and they had people coming around to refresh your beverage, all this kind of stuff. McDonald's, like a Burger King, you walk in and everybody's like, I'm kind of all embarrassed to be here. The employees feel that way. It's dark. It's kind of dirty. It's just a different vibe. And so I think it's a matter of looking at what are the other problems your audience faces. Like I used the yard guys, for example. If I was running a lawn care company, I would look at, okay, what are other problems people face when it comes to the lawn? Well, I may be embarrassed that my yard looks so bad. So maybe talk about that. Maybe maybe price is a concern. So show me the value of you doing it versus me having to do it myself to save time. Like pick other problems that are in parallel to what you like with real estate. I'm actually working with an agent in Atlanta proper, and their primary audience is people first-time home buyers. So it's not just about buying a home for that audience. It's also about what are the million other problems, right? They don't know the lexicon of buying a house. Right. And the mortgage industry is like, what does this even mean? Like, I need a dictionary just to talk to my agent and my mortgage person. Right. So there's all these other problems that if they start talking about those, I promise their competitors are not in the neighborhoods they're in. They're going to kill it because they're talking about all the other issues, just like what a Chick-fil-A does. And Chick-fil-A, I've also read too, makes more money per store per year than McDonald's, Subway, and Starbucks combined.
Yep. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. You said something just a minute ago that when I meet with my business clients one-on-one or even in my online coaching, my group coaching, I talk a lot about looking for problems. Like you mentioned Chick-fil-A. Anytime somebody mentions Chick-fil-A, you said drive-through, could be 900 cars. I know I'm gonna be in out of here in about 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
When they see a problem. So the problem is our foods are the good thing is our food is so good it creates the problem of everybody wants to come here. So when the drive-through gets insane, which it does. They said, you know what, we're going to attack that problem head on. We're going to be not just solution oriented, but this is going to be an industry standard where people look and go, we have to do like this. Why don't people, instead of looking for problems and attacking problems, why do they run? Why do they go? They just kind of don't want to pay attention to that, Wes.
Yeah, I think sometimes we're just too busy. We're running too fast to stop and look at the right things. I think people don't think to look at problems, right? They think about how do we expand brand awareness, or how do we achieve these goals? It's like, you have to be radically focused on your customers, your clients, right? So Chick-fil-A, they tested, I don't know if you remember this I don't know if they did it in Birmingham. I know they did it around Atlanta several years ago. They tested a thing that they ended up canceling for something else. They called it the Mom Valet, right? Do you remember this?
Where they go to the table and they scan the table?
Well, no, this is before all that. So the Mom Valet was a drive-through thing they did in some test stores. And you'd pull up to the drive-through and say, I want the Mom Valet, which meant you would order, you would pay at the window, you'd go park, you would bring your kids in, and the food would be on the table for you when you walked in. Because you've got kids, you walk into a fast food place and you're in line, and they turn the queue into like monkey bars. And then you're embarrassed, you're overwhelmed. It's like, I would love to just have everybody contained in their seatbelts and just go sit down. And now, like you said, it's the app. They have the app where you can order ahead of time, walk in, literally tap your phone to the table, and within 3 minutes, your food's out. And it's problem solved. I mean, I also love that Chick-fil-A over on, where I'm talking about, listeners may not, on Atlanta Highway, over in front of Hobby Lobby and all that.
Yep.
Where you and I go to Lobby. We were there over the weekend. Double drive-through, and you've seen it. It snaked through the parking lot like 3 times. All of the curbside pickup spots were taken. It was like a 1 o'clock on Saturday. It was bonkers. But on the left of it was an empty KFC, and to the right was an empty Taco Bell. I mean, it was crazy.
That would have made it for a great Instagram post.
Yeah, if I could have stood in the street and taken a picture like getting hit by a car, sure. But it's like, this is the difference between a brand that says, you know what, we want to make our food good. We don't do value meals. We don't do discounts. We don't do dollar menus. But it's going to be super fast. The food's going to be great. It's going to be super easy with an app. We're going to have 18 kids out here in the lot in the drive-through line getting your order. With the iPads just moving, right? And they solve all those problems. That was pre-pandemic. They started that app 3 years ago, the Chick-fil-A app, and it's helped them grow. They had 7 million downloads in the first month in 2017 because they knew, how do we make it even faster for people? How do we address what our customers are dealing with? I mean, Amazon does this too. The reason Amazon Prime exists is because when you and I were buying stuff in the early 2000s on Amazon, what was a hurdle? Shipping. Well, for $99 or $119, whatever Prime is now, free 2-day shipping. And now we all buy more stuff because they addressed a problem that we have, right? And the great companies constantly solve problems, and they keep looking for, what is the obstacle our customer actually has? How do we fix it?
I love it. One of the things, back to Chick-fil-A, Dan Cathy probably needs to give us a love offering or something. Was as much as
I'll take it
about Chick-fil-A today. I know, right? I remember Trick Cathy when Boston Market came to Atlanta 15, 20 years ago. When they came to Atlanta and they were in a board meeting, and Trick Cathy shares this in his book, where he talks about they were concerned about Boston Market. Mm-hmm. What do we need to do? How do we need to expand? How do we need to dominate the Atlanta market? And they said they were so afraid of Boston Market coming into the Atlanta area. They said that Trick Cathy stood at the table and literally got frustrated and slammed his fist on the table. He said, "Listen, if we get better, our customers will demand that we get bigger."
Yeah.
If we get better, our customers will demand that we get bigger. Yeah. And dude, that is one of the things in a transferable leadership principle, Wes, across whatever business, nonprofit, whatever you're doing. Talk to me about, because really what you're saying is, and for our audience today, you can find Wes at Wes Gay, at Wes Gay on Instagram. Really what we're talking about today is solving problems, getting better, looking at viewing our business through the lens of our clients, getting better. I did $8 million in real estate last year solo by myself before we started our team in the last 6 months. And I did that because I teach my agents all the time. We were on a call yesterday with my team for about 6.5 hours. Wow. I'm working 3 brand new deals in Birmingham market. And I told them again yesterday, I said, guys, listen, if we'll view our customers through the lens of adding value and building relationships versus the pull and the tension to look at our clients through the lens of transactions, and that's my paycheck. They're paying my mortgage. If we'll do that, you'll do more business, and not just real estate, but whatever it is you do, you'll do more business than you know what to do with. So talk to me about, Wes, about what Trick Cathy said. If we get better, people will demand that we get bigger.
Yeah. If you're constantly figuring out how to get better, how to improve as an organization in the eyes of your customers, and that's the key. If we get better as a company that's focused on customers then our customers demand we get bigger because they will want more from us. You know, if we figure out what are the issues our audience has, what are the challenges they encounter, and we figure out how to solve those, and we tell them how we solve this for you, or hey, you have this problem, now let me show you how to fix it. They are going to start buying from you more, and then you have the internal problem of scale, which is a great problem to have. Right. But that only is dependent on, are you actually engaging with the issues your audience has? And we're seeing this right now in the midst of the pandemic, which has accelerated, I think, a lot of innovation and is forcing companies in a good way to finally rethink what are they doing and are they addressing the actual needs? Because they went from lofty big plans to like, what are we going to do to make payroll? How are we going to ensure, kind of hedge our bets? Well, what do we need to do? What do we need to make? What do we need to sell? How do we need to reposition even what we do to be focused more? Mm-hmm. So if you I can't say this enough. And again, this is sometimes what I run into is people think, well, our company's too big. That's not going to work for us. Well, if Apple does it, if Amazon does it, if ChickfilA will be $14 billion by the end of this year is their projections, right. 14 or 15. They hit 10 billion 2.5 years ahead of schedule, right? They were supposed to hit 10 billion in 2020. They did it in the middle of 2017, I think. It's stupid, right? These are like, right. They're like Scrooge McDuck swimming in cash with all these companies. It's like the reality, if Apple can do it, if Amazon can do it, if Walmart's doing it, if Target's doing it, if Chick-fil-A's doing it, they're all doing versions of this. You can do it in your business. I don't care what your business is, but focus everything on the challenges your customer have, solve those problems, address those problems. And I promise you, you will need to hire somebody like Ken to help you solve the business, the problems of scale.
That.
Yeah.
Help us scale that bad boy. I've got a client that I'm working with right now. They're doing about $6 million a year. And we're trying to get him to 12. We're like, yeah. Hey, and to be honest with you, I was going to say, guys, Wes, you know this, that literally, and my coach and mentor tells me this all the time. Listen, everyone needs a coach. Everyone needs somebody that has that 30,000 foot view of what's going on. So Wes, man, what's the best way for people to connect to you? Obviously at Wes Gay on Instagram. What about your website?
Yeah, you can hit me at wesgay.com, WESGAY.com, or hire, HIRE, wayfinder.com. Hit me on both of those. And then what I'd love to do is figure out how I can help you. Right now, one of the biggest things to think about is frankly your website. Your website ought to be your only 24/7 sales representative. Your website is your only sales rep that works all the time, that you can legally pay pennies per day, and it ought to be driving business for you. So I want to help you do that. And what I'd love for you to do is shoot me an email at wes@wesgay.com with a link to your website, and I'll shoot you back a video review of ways I think you can make it better and in order to strengthen that. If you want us, and honestly, if you want to hire us to help you figure that out for you at a bigger scale, great. If not, take whatever I send you, put it to practice, and let me know how it works for you.
Yeah, guys. And also, we just finished our virtual summit. You were on this month, correct? Or was it in June?
I think it was June.
So you can go to our YouTube channel, search at Ken Jocelyn. You can pull all of our videos. Our podcasts are on there every day. Our virtual summits that we do once a month are on there as well. And Wes was on in June. And Wes isn't like the big rah guy. Like some of the guys we have on there. He's this is what you got to do. He literally puts cookies on the bottom shelf for you.
Yeah. Listen, the closer I can get to the cookies and the donuts, the better. And here's
ChickfilA.
And then bless the Lord, man, a chocolate cookies and cream milkshake is the greatest menu hack at ChickfilA.
I can't even listen. I hit the gym hard.
That's why you hit the gym hard. By the way, ChickfilA calls their milkshakes the 7-mile milkshakes because you'd have to run 7 miles to burn the equivalent number of calories in a milkshake. Anyways, that'll depress you.
I did 15 on the bike, so can I have 2 today?
You double fist it, man. Here's the deal. The reason I want to just cut straight to it is we just don't have time. We are busy people. Right. Your audience is overwhelmed. You're overwhelmed. Let's just cut to what we need to do to help you grow your business. Because I think when we focus on growing our businesses, a lot of things happen. One, you're able to provide more for yourself and your family, which I think is great. Hopefully you're able to hire more people and pay them more money. You're able to have more things to do as a business. You have more money to give away, more money to get involved in organizations locally to help in things like poverty and homelessness and address the issues that are going on in your world. You're able to pay for health insurance, which is stupid expensive, and provide. I mean, there's so many things we can do when your businesses grow. It's not just about it's not being about greedy. It's the fact that money it can frankly bring some happiness, but it also brings a tremendous amount of security and a tremendous amount of opportunity. So how do we fix your marketing and your messaging to help you experience, you and your family and your team experience that, so that we can hopefully make this world a little bit better? because it's a
I love
mess.
it, man. I love it, man. Wes, thank you, man, for being a guest. I appreciate
thanks,
your
Ken.
friendship and your relationship and everything you've done for my businesses and the stuff I send you at 10 o'clock at night or 9 p.m. Hey, can you read through this right here? And how does this sound as we get ready to present this to our audience?
Yeah.
Grateful for you. Hey, guys, listen, I hope you enjoyed today's Growth Stack Drive podcast. Again, I'm your host, Ken Jocelyn. Tomorrow, you got a special treat again. I've got my good friend, Garen Jones, who's going to be live. This cat he's just straight fire. So I'd love for you to join us tomorrow at noon Eastern time. Wes, my friend, thank you again for being here. Thank you for connecting with our audience. Thank you for everything you do for business owners and really just helping them build that story, become that guide, and help them be able to grow their business and expand what their vision and their dream is, man.
Thanks, Ken. I appreciate it.
Enjoy your day, buddy. Thanks, guys. We'll see you tomorrow, noon Eastern.